Bookish friends, welcome to my July wrap-up part 1. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 books that I finished in the first half of July, and then give a very brief update on my progress on Berna's Bookish Bingo. The first book that I finished in the month of July was the second book that I have given 10 out of 10 this year, which was Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. I previously talked about how The Pillars of the Earth was the only book that I have given 10 out of 10, but I started the second half of year with a very good book. This book talks about a butler called Stevens, who goes to a tour of English countryside, convinces his previous housemaid to come back to work in the grand house that he works in, which is Darlington Hall. Up until reading this book, I never thought that I would have given a book that has almost no action and a very little plot development a rating of 10 out of 10. But I loved this book writing style so much. It was written so beautifully, and for the first time in many years, I really forced myself to read a book much more slower than my usual pace, to enjoy this beautiful writing style in small doses, and I wanted to extend this wonderful reading experience as much as I can. I think the character of Stevens was both very clueless about life itself. Also, one of the most tragic characters that I have read in a book. One of the reviews that I read in Goodreads said that this book is about what did that happen. That was a wonderful description of this book. Additionally, the descriptions of nature, which I am not very fond of reading in books actually, was very beautiful, and I immensely enjoyed the descriptions of the English countryside, and I felt like I was there while I was reading that scenes. And the character of Stevens actually reminded me so much of the butler in Downton Abbey, Mr. Carlson. When I was reading this book, I kept hearing the actor's voice in my ears. Being a fan of that TV show, it was an additional joy to read this book. So everything just fitted perfectly for me, and that's why I gave this book a 10 out of 10. And the second book that I read was a book that was originally written in French, but I read the Turkish edition. Empodekles'in Dostları by Amin, Maalouf. This book has not been yet translated to English, but because it was published in 2020, there is a very big chance that it will be in the future. Amin Maalouf is one of the beloved authors in my country. I have read 2 books from him many years ago, and I really enjoyed those books, and I also really enjoyed this book as well. The book follows an author who lives in a very isolated island, and one day all of the communication is cut all throughout the world. The author thinks that a nuclear disaster happened, but as the story progressed, we see that a very different type of society, whom they call themselves friends of Empodekles, tries actually to solve the problem in today's world. I really enjoyed the writing style of Amin Maalouf. He has a very beautiful writing style, and the translator is also very successful in my opinion. I really liked how the book started as a dystopia, but went somewhere very different. Even though the author is very disappointed in humankind, I really did like the hopeful tone of the book in general. I'm really hoping that this book would be translated to English. And to sum it up, I gave Empodekles'in Dostları an 8 out of 10. And then I finished my first work that I read for janeaustenjuly, which was the Watsons. It was written by Jane Austen, which was a work that she stopped writing when I read that work. I think I can understand why she stopped writing, because when I was reading the book, I felt really unaffected. And the witty tone of Jane Austen was not present in this book, and there were too many characters and I did not care about any of them. In the 90 pages that I read, I did not feel that there was any character depth for any of the characters. I mean, if it was a parody, I would have understood it, but it was not a parody. It was just anecdotes scattered throughout the book with so many different characters. And I also really didn't understand the family relationships as well. That's why I gave this very disappointing work a 4 out of 10. And the fourth book that I finished belonged to the series that I picked up from the series cup. The sixth book in Bridgerton's series, When He Was Wicked, by Julia Quinn. This book tells the love story of Francesca, who has been widowed after 2 years of marriage, her friendship, and then a love story with Michael Sterling, who is the cousin of her late husband. I gave this work in the series a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed the first part of the book much more when they were just friends, and Michael's feelings were secret and platonic. In the second half, the book became too much sexy even for me. I mean, I can read sex scenes. If there is an abundance of sex scenes in a book, I think that really diminishes the emotional part of the romance books. So it was much more racy than my standards, and that's why this installment in the series only got 7 out of 10, even though the characters were actually quite well developed and likable. The last book that I finished in the first half of July was the second book that I finished for janeaustenjuly, which was to read a book that was written by a contemporary of Jane Austen. The book was titled Regency Etiquette, The Mirror of Graces, and it was written by an anonymous person who called herself a lady of distinction. Although I liked the general idea of this non-fiction book very much, I think it had many repetitions, and I felt like I was listening to the same things over and over again. Even though I agree with some of the aesthetical things that this lady talks about, because I also believe in the beauty of modesty and classy. But as a modern woman, it was hard for me to identify with that lady, because she was very judgy. She called many of the women who likes to dress up very much and use excessive amount of makeup, very rude names, and immediately gave them a label because they dressed up that way, which is something that I really despise. I mean, nobody has to dress up like me, and I really dislike the author because of that. Although it was detailed, and some of the details were very interesting because of the prejudiced tone that this book has. I gave this non-fiction work a 6 out of 10. And for my progress in Berna's Bookish Bingo, I started with a brand new card in July. I used 3 of the books that I finished in the first half of July for bingo prompts, and I used Empodekles'in Dostları by Amin Maalouf as a book written by an Asian author, because Amin Maalouf is an author from Lebanon. I used When He Was Wicked for a book written in 2000s, which meant that it was written between the years of 2000 and 2009. Lastly, I used Regency Etiquette, The Mirror of Graces by a Lady of Distinction, for the prompt of an author using a pseudonym. I know you can argue that it was written anonymously. It's my bingo, so I'm going to use it anyway. So I think I made a fairly good start with Berna's Bookish Bingo again. Please comment down below, have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? And if you're a new viewer, first of all, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye. As for Turkish word of the day, since my favorite book was called Remains of the Day, I thought day should be the word of the day. Day means gün in Turkish, and gün is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.